Let me get this one and action.
Jamie Shelton. Or should I call it?
That's my name. Don't wear it out.
Well, what's up with the... Can I call you Chico?
You can. I'll give...
Tell everybody...
I'll give you the story about that.
Okay, come on, Chico.
Because I've had nicknames before. That's the most enduring and apparently the most endearing one, right? So when we start when we're going to school, actually, this is long before we even created the doctors and even before we were actually doing any kind of party promoting. This was still freshman year. And we're sitting in the cafeteria with one of our future partners in the group, one of the founding members, Quinn. We're not Cooper. We're sitting around, we're BSing and stuff, having lunch, whatever. And Quinn's looking at me. He's like, you look like someone. I know who you look. Chico and the Man. And I'm like, really? And I'm thinking, he thinks I look like Freddie Prinze. I have to take a look in the mirror. But from that point on, that's what Quinn would call me.
Yeah.
And it caught on because eventually everyone at school was calling me that. And a little story is telling Keenan outside. This was very unusual because part of the reason I know that you had wanted to form the group was, and I'm going to use your own words, so it's going to embarrass you a little bit, is that you wanted to get together who you consider to be all the players in high school.
Thank you.
And I was considered one of those largely on the strength of how well known Chico was.
That's true.
Now, Chico was literally famous. I wasn't famous. There were people all over the city in the high school, not just Catholic schools, but a few public schools that apparently knew who Chico was. Had never met me before. But they knew who Chico was. The name took on a life of its own. And by virtue of that, I became a celebrity even among people who wouldn't have known me on the street. They would have passed right by me, but they had heard of Chico. Now, I have no idea how that happened. No one has ever been able to explain how that happened. I've never been able to find out. I did discover a few years later, by our senior year in high school, there was a young man that went to St. Francis de Sales.
Okay.
That strongly resembled me, apparently even down to the mold.
I remember.
His name was Chico.
Yeah, he was.
But he was not well known. He wasn't particularly well known. He known at his own school probably. But I learned this when there was one night at a football game at Gately Stadium on the city's south side where our football team would play.
Yeah.
A young lady came running up to me right after the game, thinking that I was this guy because she went to St. Francis.
Oh.
Apparently, this was either the guy's girlfriend or a girl he was dating, because she had a few choice words for him that I was very happy to be able to tell her were not for me. She had the wrong guy. But apparently the resemblance was strong enough to where people were probably mistaking us for each other. But it never really explained why Chico was so well known in the city long before people knew who I actually was by virtue of being on the doctors. I'm assuming, because I had never asked you outright, I'm assuming that was why you wanted me on the group, because I could have still drawn pluggers or done whatever you needed without being in the group. But to be a part of the group,
right.
I'm assuming that was the deal there.
That's true, Jim.
And it's to this day it's a mystery to me because I've never known why that nickname took off and became so well known among people. Some of whom may have still never met me.
It was awesome, man. Quinn named you that, but Ernest just ran with Chico D'Amico.
Ernest, who was another student at the school, he was a pretty cool cat. We would hang out together. He did. I remember that. He really did run with that.
And I'm gonna tell you something else. I never knew the story about Quinn, but I found out about the story one time. because I think I asked you to translate something in Spanish, and you were like, "Why are you asking me to translate?"
Yeah, we were all in Spanish class. I didn't know any more than that.
and I was like, "Well, what, aren't you Chico? Aren't you Hispanic?" You were like, "No."
That's right, because you weren't there that day. We were there with Ernest was there. He was there sitting with us, and Dave.
Okay.
Dave Harris was there with us.
Okay.
And the funny thing was, the really funny thing was at the time, I thought Dave was one of the coolest cats I had ever met. I was like, I want to be like that guy. Yeah, he was going around saying he knew martial arts and stuff. And we found out he didn't. But, that aside, his whole vibe was very, very chill. He was a very smooth individual. I said, I wanted to be like that guy. So, you never knew this. None of the other guys never knew this. But when you told me about the group, I knew that Dave was already in. I said, yeah, I'll be in. Because I'm trying to be like Dave. I'm trying to be like Tony Harris. That guy is cool as can be.
That's true.
So that was my real motivation for getting in the group. Because I still, at that time, even then, I still thought he was totally cool. But yeah, that day it was the four of us were sitting there. It was Quinn, Ernest, and Dave and myself. And that was, when he did that, I was like, that's weird. I never thought that I looked like Freddie Prinze. I still don't.
Well, I'm gonna say that you're way more handsomer than Freddie Prinze.
Maybe more like his son.
No, you got Freddie Prinze beat. You got him beat, man. So we talked about Chico, Jamie Shelton. We talked about Chico, but let's talk about your doctor name. And how did you come up with your doctor name?
Now originally, when you put together all the names, in fact, I think you had even already gotten them put on shirts of some sort. So, and I think this was how it came about. Everyone had already gotten a shirt. Andre got Dr. Doolittle. And I think the only shirt that was left said Dr. Do Big. And so that's how I ended up with Do Big.
That's true. I forgot about that.
That was, and your thinking was because Skeeter was a smaller guy, Doolittle. Everyone else was a little bit bigger or taller. Someone would be Do Big, and that would be the opposite. But all the other shirts were already taken, so that's how I ended up with Do Big. But I had always thought Do Big was, first of all, it wasn't an actual character, so it was just kind of like a caricature, if you will. And I don't think the name ever really took off among people outside of us. I mean, we got the joke, but I don't think anyone else really got it unless they saw Skeeter and me together. Then they would get it. And then whether it was funny or not, that's another matter. But among most of the doctors' names that people could identify at the time, I knew that one that you had not picked was Dr. Kiley, who I think was the assistant to... Oh, no, it was a different TV show. Kildare was movies, Gannon was TV, and Kiley was another TV show. Mm-hmm. There were other options. I could run Dr. Welby or something, but no.
No, nobody wanted to be Dr. Welby.
Yeah,
no one wanted that name. We love you, Dr. Welby. No.
But Kiley, younger, vibrant, and people would recognize that. People knew that. So at some point, we changed from Dr. Dubig to Dr. Kiley because it gave us more continuity with the characters that we were identifying with. Quinn had his own, Spumone,
Dr. Spumone,
whatever that came from. And then when Rory came along, Shrinker caught on simply because of who Rory was.
And the TV show was on at the time. And yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. The doctor names were a heck of a challenge trying to get a doctor name because it was enough of them, but we had a lot of guys. Those were some slick names. The doctor name, and I want to make sure everyone knows Dave Harris, Tony Harris's doctor name. He might have had the best one.
Well, I thought Dr. Jekyll was awesome.
Yeah, I thought Dr. Jekyll.
I mean, that's like an obvious one.
Yeah.
I mean, you do Dr. Jekyll. One could do Dr. Frankenstein, but I think at the time, I want to say we had even talked about it that there was someone in another group I don't know if it was Arthur's group, the Disease Boys, but there was someone in another group I think had that name as a nickname. It wasn't Dr. Frankenstein, it was just Frankenstein.
Oh, okay.
I want to say that was the reason. So someone had already had that.
Okay.
So we passed on that. But yeah, it would become a challenge because the idea, we're wanting to get a name that's going to resonate with the crowd and that people are going to pick up on, they're going to be able to relate to, they'll be able to visually identify an individual. If you say Gannon, Kildare, Kiley, Doolittle, and Jekyll especially, there's some very distinct visuals that come with that people can picture. So if we got a good one, and we were able to get all the good ones that we got, that came in handy. That was a very big asset for us. So it was a key element to the group.
I had totally forgotten about Dr. Do Big. But that was on the plug. But you know what else you put on that plug? Dr. I See Spots.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that was a cool name too, man. That was a cool one too, man.
That probably would have been a good one, but
yeah.
No, I didn't. Again, the caricature part, I didn't want. That was something that you want to be able to put that independently on other stuff.
And you know what, Jamie? All that does is set me up for the next and tell about your creativity, man, and your artistry. I said it before. I'm gonna say it again. The doctors would have been nothing without you and your pen, your handwork, you were just great, man.
That is of course true, but no, I think the concept you had, I think it would have been able to take off on its own. I think I was able to add a dimension to it that gave it much more of a novelty, where a lot of the other groups did not have or would not otherwise had that novelty. So it gave us an added element. So and I think in turn gave us an added appeal. But I think the Doctors would have done quite well on their own, even without the visual. But at the time, I'm thinking of all the little clever things that could be done with the idea of a doctor, with the idea of promoting doctors that happen to be dancers and partiers, and this being kind of various pseudonyms and identities, outward identities, characters, if you will. We were creating characters. So the characters, the names kind of led people to identify with the characters that were really nothing more than an extension of our own personalities. They each knew us individually for our own personalities, and they identified those doctors' names with that personality. And then the pluggers and all the other designs that I did were intended to really play off of and exploit those features, those qualities, and to make people to draw people in to what we were trying to do. So, I could have done a lot of elaborate artwork like some of the later guys that came along, like Craig, Rex, and stuff did, but it wasn't really us. It was not the kind of thing that we had initially become known for, and by the time that kind of fashion element took off and was another very critical piece to that house culture puzzle, if you will, we were already established the way we were. So changing things would not have made much sense. We could have and did, I think, try to evolve them, but changing them we would have just ended up being something different and not our best selves. So
I agree with almost 100% of what you said, but you mentioned something about anybody could have done it, and I was just you being humble.
No, not that anybody could have done it. It was like any individual that happened to be an artist could have done pluggers, or could have been the artistic arm for you guys. They wouldn't have been able to do what I did.
Thank you.
And I know
that's what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah, well I know that it's and yeah, it's not trying to be humble or false modesty or anything, but I knew what I was doing with that, and I knew what the scene that we were helping to develop. I knew the kind of things that could be done within the scene. I had an idea of who could benefit from the kind of imagery that we had working for us, and who really needed other imagery or needed to do something else. It was all a matter of what the scene was. So the scene that we had helped develop with all these kids that were putting together groups, they were emulating us, and they were contributing to this collective scene that they were starting to grow. That kind of visualization, it went with that. It went with that scene. Now the kind of scene that Craig Thompson had created fashion-wise, and that Tony and other guys like that, that direction would have required different visualization, a different conceptualization even. Yeah. And that's where fashion school art students like Craig Rex came in. They fit that bill perfectly. Yeah. So while I could have done that, that wasn't the thing for me to do. It was not, it didn't fit what we were doing at the time. Right. And later once, and I actually did, and I don't know if that many people realize this, but after Craig Ritz went off to school, and I think it was after he even moved out west, and Craig Thompson was still here, I actually did a few of the visuals for Craig's last events that he did in Chicago. Okay. I'm hoping he still has copies. Oh, because I don't have them. I'd like to, but that was something, you know, when Craig Ritz went, I don't recall if he was going off to finish art school, but he had moved away, so he just wasn't around to do them. Yeah, yeah. So that's when Craig Thompson asked me to do a few for him, and you know, he told me how he wanted to do it, and I already knew because it was like, so yeah, it wasn't a problem. So I pretty much did what had been done before, but at the same time, I wanted to make a little bit of a statement. So I actually ratcheted up the caliber of it a bit. Yeah, yeah. So that it was even beyond what they have been doing, because Craig Rex and Alex was his name, I think it was a few other guys, they were students. Yeah. So they were in fashion school, they were doing fashion stuff. Right. And so they still had limits on what there was they could do. But by the time I was doing a few of Craig Thompson's last Plugger Invite designs, I was able to do more of a traditional and much more upscale kind of artwork for him. So hopefully he's got copies, because I think I gave him the originals. Never asked for them back. Craig Thompson, man, he had a lot to do with us, man, behind the scenes. And speaking of behind the scenes, Jamie, you and I have a special relationship. We were friends before the Doctors. Oh yeah. You know, but me and Kildare, we started the group, but me and you were like the brains, like the executive, the creative drive. Actually. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, because you had a very good concept. I'll tell you, I always thought that you were one of the best idea people I ever knew, because you always had good ideas. Whether or not you were able to flesh them out well, that depends on a lot of things that could be beyond you, could be beyond what you have available to work with. But you always had excellent ideas. I rarely recollect hearing a bad idea or an idea that could not be made good come out of you. So when you were talking about doing that, because we worked on, you were doing parties, we were promoting some events prior to that. Yeah, me and Wayne had stuff going on. Right. But you know, the thing that I loved about you, OJ, I can say, hey man, I have a purple Martian, you know, with a yellow jumpsuit on a cereal box, and you would just be okay. How many? When do you need it? I love. You know, I love the little genie guy. I started calling him after he passed away. Affectionately, I'm calling the little guy Lerone. You know, because Lerone was our friend, and Lerone was very key in that as well. There's a lot of people. The thing about any kind of culture, genre of any type. And the house culture made me think about this more often as it matured and it stuck around and even grew well beyond what I had helped Wayne find and what we had done with the doctors. Everything starts out with a certain scene. There's always a bunch of individuals. There's never any one person.
That's right.
There's always a lot of contributors to the overall seed, if you will, of the thing. And everyone played a critical role. The doctors played a critical role, and Kirk played a critical role, and continued to play one well into it. After we left, he stayed at Mendel and stayed at Mendel well beyond how long I thought he had stayed, even, and continued to cultivate and work to promote that kind of vibe, if you will, that was very key to bringing these various elements together into what would end up being called house. Because here's a story I know none of you guys had told as of yet. So this would be a nice job for the editor to make sure that no one's talking about it before me. We mentioned Craig Thompson.
Yeah.
Craig Thompson's what I refer to as one of the four. There's like four critical elements. You could almost say like chemistry elements, if you will, that were critical to house ever existing at all. Without one of those four, nothing would have happened at all. So there's some obvious ones. There's Robert and Ziggy, the owners of the warehouse, and then there's Frankie. He's the DJ, so by default, he's the one that's instrumental. And then there's Craig. Now I remember the incident. We knew that Craig was throwing parties. He was into the fashion scene. He's throwing parties at the Apparel Center in downtown Chicago, things like that. So he's into that scene, and he's clearly embodying it. So he's wearing what at the time was considered risque for a masculine man.
Absolutely.
He's wearing the linen, he's wearing the pastel, the sweater around the collar kind of stuff.
Right.
Very early on, long before it became a fashion statement on Miami Vice or anything. So when he did his first event at the warehouse, and you had gotten a hold of one of the pluggers, and you guys didn't know anything about the warehouse.
Nope.
You never heard about it at all. We were in the study hall at Mendel. It was, I remember distinctly, it was you, us and Darian, and there was someone else there. I can't recall whether it was Somerville or it could have been Dave.
It might have been Greg.
It could have even been Greg. But I remember you two distinctly being there because you were talking about this. Man, there's some place called the Warehouse. What is this place? And I looked at it, and I thought, holy crap. And I said, fellas, I know what this place is. And you know what? All the rumors that guys have about Craig around school that they're talking about him, they could be true. And you were like, really? Really? How's that? Well, the Warehouse. And that's when I told you guys about the Warehouse. The Warehouse is a members-only gay club.
Right.
So for Craig to know about this, I'm not trying to say anything, but but I remember it distinctly because you chimed in and you start cracking on me. Well, wait a minute, how do you know about this? If this is some members only.
We always have jokes, okay? We got a joke for you now. Don't worry.
Right, and that was pretty cute. I was like, oh yeah, right. Well, as it turned out, one of my older brothers, who was gay, was a charter member of U.S. Studio. Okay. So when it opened, like the first few weeks it opened, he and my cousin Dell, they would go hang out there. Okay. And so that's how I knew about it. That we had even given them a ride, dropped them off there one night. Okay. So I had known all about the place. Now, Wayne, I had talked to Wayne about this many years later, recently even, and was talking about this. You guys talking about the Warehouse? None of you guys knew what the hell the Warehouse was until I told you. Now, Wayne challenged us and said, no, I knew. He said one of the DJs that he was studying or mentoring told him about it. Right. And I'm like, okay, I'll grant you that. If because they probably would have known, and if they told you, I know he didn't know about it. He had heard of it. So because he wouldn't have been allowed in because it was members only. So I'm wondering, well, how did Craig get access?
Yeah.
Something I'll ask him next time I see him.
Yeah. Hey, then you can ask him tomorrow. You know?
Right. It's but that was that was the beginnings of that. So when we went to that.
Oh, okay.
And checked it out, and I don't even recall if we were able to get in because it was so packed there, and the way the place was designed, there's the staircase going up, and there were people standing in line to get in there out into the street. So I don't honestly recall if we were able to make it inside at that time, but you got the idea, and Tony probably got the idea around that time too, to do an event. He said this place would be cool. I'm assuming you must have got in, because if you wanted to do an event there, you must have at least gotten a look at it.
No, it was a little different. The way it went down, I was mentioning it was it must have been you. We were talking about how Craig influenced the doctors a great deal. He helped us a lot, man. You know, Craig Thompson was a year over us. He graduated from Mendel in 1977.
Class of 77.
And Craig helped us get most of our venues. He helped us get St. Albie's.
Right.
He helped us get Robert's 500.
Right. That one I remember distinctly. Yeah, Craig was a serious promoter.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
He was a lot like me in the sense that, and not trying to prop myself up, but Craig was a lot like me in the sense that he didn't care about the party. He was not a partier.
Right.
He didn't hang out at parties to have a good time.
Right.
You know, he was about putting on productions. He was about turning a buck and making a living out of doing this thing that Robert and Ziggy were doing with the Warehouse and the Den and places like that. He saw money and business opportunity in it, and it was very interesting. I came to learn that he thought that way, and so he had connects to all these places.
Yeah.
That he was able, some of, like you say, some of which he was able to get us with people that maybe wouldn't have otherwise sat down with school kids. You know,
exactly.
Because he did not carry himself like a school kid. He did not.
Never.
And I learned a lot about that from him, and that's a little bit of from observing him how I was able